Well, 4 goals against in your last 2 matches and 2 goals against inside 2 minutes, in 4 minutes this afternoon. What were you thinking then, for heaven's sake?
I can't tell you. A lot of words, a lot of things was going around in my mind, but the players showed a lot of character, and they came back and they kept plugging away at what they believe, and they believe in going forward. I believe in going forward, and fortunately for us and for football, that it paid off. And overall, it was a very, very exciting game.
You were 3-2 ahead by half-time. A really exquisite goal by Andy Gray, I thought, that made it 3-2.
I thought it was a super goal. I thought it was a fabulous goal. The only thing I say is that we get forward, we get it wide, and we get the thing in the penalty area, because that is Andy's strength, is the balls being crossed, and Andy's there, and super goal.
He did a lot more than that, though, didn't he, today? I mean, he was leading the line from in front and from behind. His distribution was super, and he defended like mad, too.
He's done that now for, well, since he's been back. He showed a lot of character. As you say, he shows other things, Andy, and he's got a lot more than I thought. When I came here, I always thought Andy Gray, as I said, is basically a header of the ball, but he's got a lot around his feet. As you said, he led the line well, and I think he's starting now. Hopefully, that the Scottish manager will sit up and have a look and show that Andy Gray.
Graham, haven't heard the full story. Palace came back to 3-3. You think it was gone then?
No, because we've been 2 down before.
Yeah. And finally, Mick Matthews' goal. They're wanting me to wrap it up. You'll have to watch it tomorrow afternoon. I'm sure you'll watch it again.
I will do. Thank you.
Wolves manager there, happy man. Yes, well worth watching tomorrow afternoon. Top of Division 3, while Lincoln's match at Oxford was abandoned in the second half because of fog, Huddersfield leapt into second spot with a 3-1 defeat of close rivals Bristol Rovers. Newport slipped up 1-0 away to Welsh rivals Wrexham. Cardiff's game was postponed because of a waterlogged pitch. Right, 1 or 2 late kickoffs. 1, to be exact. League Division 4. Tranmere Rovers 2, Hereford United 1. Tranmere not quite sure of their future, but they certainly got 3 points today. Let's have a look at the top of Division 4 now. Bury open up a 3-point lead at the top with their 1-0 win over second-place Scunthorpe. That was the top match in that division today. Swindon 2-1 winners at Stockport last night stay third. And Hull, who beat Chester 2-0, edged Port Vale out of fourth place on goal difference. Top of Scotland, Celtic won away at Hibs, and they now have a 3-point lead at the top from Dundee United, who won as well. So did Aberdeen. They beat Rangers, and there's quite a gap now developing between third and fourth, as you see. Now we've got the pools news. 6 score draws and 4 no-score draws. Hey, you might get rich this weekend. Telephone claims required for 22 points. The dividend forecast, there you see it, very good. Let's have a look at the numbers. Score draws 6, 14, 19, 23, 47, 48, and the no-score draws 22, 28, 37, and 52. And the very best of luck to you. Right, now let's pick up the rugby union results.
The Thornier County Championship semi-finals, Gloucestershire 19, Surrey 16, Middlesex 7, Yorkshire 18. In the County Championship playoffs, Berkshire 6, Oxfordshire 4, Cheshire 12, Cumbria 10, Devon 18, Cornwall 3, Dorset and Wiltshire 12, Eastern Counties 25, Kent 14, East Midlands 3, Lancashire 22, Notts Links and Derbyshire 0. Leicestershire 16, Durham 36, Northumberland 47, Hertfordshire 3, Somerset 15 and North Midlands 3 abandoned after 69 minutes because of fog. Sussex 14, Hampshire 3, Warwickshire 15, Staffordshire 12. The club matches, Aberavon 15, Pontypool 20, Bedford 6, Coventry 9, Blackheath 6, Neath 21, Cardiff 24, Llanelli 13. Harlequins 19, Cambridge University 4, London Irish 15, Gloucester 12, London Scottish 22, Oxford University 6, London Welsh 16, Newport 7, Leicester 22, Moseley 15, Newbridge 7, Bridgend 3, Plymouth Albion 12, Cheltenham 12, Saracens 9, Abertillery 4, Swansea 31, Richmond 6, Stroud 9, Bristol 10.
And there you have the few rugby league results today in the John Player Trophy. You might have seen it earlier on grandstand. St Helens 17, Fulham 5. And Division 2, Blackpool Borough 7, Swinton 14, Huyton 5, Keighley 14. Right, back to the football now, and David Pleat, the Luton manager, was looking for his first win in 7 league games this afternoon. He didn't get it. His team drew 3-3 with Southampton. David talking now with John Motson.
Well, that was one of the most entertaining matches I think I've ever seen, David. What was it like from where you sat?
Well, I'm glad you thought it was entertaining, John. I feel mentally and physically drained. We're finding it very hard. We're a little bit generous. I sometimes feel it's like a little bit of a circus. We're just entertaining, we're playing football, but we're getting caught a little bit at the other end, and we've got to put it right. But no one in the crowd who's seen the game today could be disappointed.
2-0 down to start with. Defensive mistakes or credit to Southampton?
Credit to Southampton. I mean, the second goal came from a super throw. No, Southampton did well, but I thought we also were thwarted by Shilton a couple of times brilliantly. And, you know, at half-time, you know, the lads aren't fools. They know that they'd held their own and it had gone against them. And then when we missed the penalty, or shall we say when the referee decided in his wisdom to disallow the goal from the penalty, then I felt, crikey, it's going to be one of those days. This is going to be a long, hard season, and we've got to accept it. But we've got a tremendous will here at the moment, and whilst we've got that will, we're going to have a very good chance of playing in the First Division next season. And, well, we will.
Back at 2-2, and then 3-2 down.
Yes, another way, you know, you know, what do you do? We thought that was it, and then we came again. It's tremendous, really. I'm just delighted that the cameras were here. We've never let any camera teams down this season. I think that's our 9th. We think we've been really overexposed, but we're delighted that when we are on the television, we come over and do ourselves justice.
And also, in what's been a bad week for football in many ways, the right sort of game to get the public enthusiastic and back on the side of football.
Well, I hope so. The trouble with the public is, you see, they like to win, and they can't always win. They've got to go home and say, well, it was a good game. 3-3 makes it a good game in their eyes, but, you know, if we'd have lost 3-2, believe it or not, although it was a tremendous game, there'd be people going away very disappointed and no doubt writing letters in the local press. That's the way the game is, and that's the way the people are that support the game. It's a strange equation. They want to be winners and entertainers.
Well, we'll leave you to get recovered mentally and physically, David. Thanks for joining us on Grandstand.
Thank you, John.
He looks all right to me. 13 goals for you on Match of the Day tomorrow afternoon, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Well, now, tennis news, and the United States retained the Davis Cup when John McEnroe and Peter Fleming beat the French pair Yannick Noah and Henri Leconte 6-3, 6-4, 9-7 in the doubles, gave them a winning, unbeatable 3-0 lead in the final at Grenoble. The final headlines then for you today. Cricket, South African-born opener Kepler Wessels hit an unbeaten century in his Test debut to help Australia to a 27-run lead on the second day of the second Test against England in Brisbane. The scores: England 219, Australia 246 for 6. Boxing, Larry Holmes retained his WBC heavyweight title by outpointing Randy Cobb over 15 rounds in Houston. Athletics, Dave Lewis of Lancashire won the Presto Food Markets cross-country race at Gateshead. England B won the team event. Racing, the 9-4 favourite Bragourn beat stablemate Captain John to complete a brilliant 1-2 for trainer Michael Dickinson in the Hennessy Cognac Gold Cup at Newbury. And football, the top 6 in the First Division all won today. Tottenham were unable, though, to break that 70-year-old Anfield jinx. Well, that's just about it. That's the end of my stint on Grandstand for a little bit. David Coleman will be here next Saturday. Bye-bye now.
Hello, on my show tonight I have 2 big stars, Dolly Parton and Cliff Richard. Dolly will be presenting her brand new song, and also I'll be chatting to her via the satellite link. Cliff will be in the studio with 2 songs and a little chatty poos as well. And Pam Casson, our Whirly Wheel winner of last week, will be taking part in a barroom brawl. I can assure you it's a programme to watch very closely indeed. It starts at 6:15 on BBC1, and I hope you'll be there. Not that close.
In 15 minutes, more adventure in the deep American South with the Dukes of Hazzard. Now on BBC1 at 5:10, the news with Jan Leeming.
The leaders of Solidarity have called off the demonstrations they'd planned next month in Poland to mark the first year of martial law. This is the first statement for some time from the now illegal trade union Solidarity. It says that there's now a new political situation in the country brought about by the release of Lech Wałęsa and also by the strong hints that martial law will be lifted on December the 13th, exactly a year after it was suddenly imposed. Since those early days when the army moved onto the streets, the underground leaders of Solidarity have called several times for strikes and protests against the authorities. Now they've shelved the campaign, though, as Kevin Ruane reports, they've made it clear they want the authorities to prove their goodwill in return.
In their first public statement since the poor response to their calls for strikes and demonstrations on November the 10th, the underground leaders say there's a new political situation. And because of that, they're calling off the week of protests planned to begin on December the 13th, when martial law is expected to be lifted exactly 1 year after it was imposed. The leaders say nothing specifically about the general strike they call for the spring of next year, but they talk of a chance for a truce, made possible, they say, by the release of Lech Wałęsa and the agreement on a date for a visit by the Pope. Such a truce, they say, could help solve the country's economic crisis, but it could work only if all political prisoners are released, all people sacked are reinstated, and all suspended organizations are restored. Without that, the underground leaders say, the lifting of martial law would be a misleading gesture.
11 of the anti-nuclear protesters from Greenham Common were set free from prison this morning. They'd all completed the 14-day sentence imposed on them for refusing to be bound over to keep the peace. Another 12 women are due to be released next week. As Mike Mackay reports, friends and supporters were waiting to greet them when the prison gates opened.
It looked more like the entrance to a stately home, but as the prison bus brought them to the gates and a reunion with friends and supporters, there was no hiding the delighted relief of the Greenham Common women. There were 3 sisters, 2 of them married, and 3 mothers of young children among the freed women. Most will be going home to their families all over the country, but 2 will be back at Greenham Common tonight, sleeping under polythene sheets, continuing the campaign to stop cruise missiles coming to Britain. The campaigners said they'd made some firm friends among the other prisoners.
Once they sort of talked to us and they found out that, you know, we aren't any different from them, and that we started saying what we were doing at Greenham and why we don't want cruise missiles, and they got really excited and really interested in that. And a lot of them have pledged their support that they're going to come down to Greenham when they get out.
Would you do the same thing again?
If I have to, yes. I mean, unless they've banned cruise missiles while I've been in there and I haven't heard about it, then yes, we have to do it again.
You'd take the same action and you'd risk going back to prison if necessary?
I think it's a very small price to pay for if it's going to give my children a future.
Then, spontaneously linking arms, the women began a medley of anti-nuclear songs, a musical thank you to the friends who travelled to this outlying prison to welcome them back to the campaign.
They said that the bombs were only keeping us free. Now they're underground and they don't have to see.
A new left-wing group in the Labour Party, formed to fight plans for the expulsion of militant tendency, has today held rallies in 8 cities. At the meeting in London, members of the Labour Committee Against Witch Hunts accused the party's right wing of mounting an attack on the left as a whole. Our political correspondent Rodney Foster was at the London rally.
Over 700 delegates attended the London conference during the day to applaud a succession of speakers demanding an end to any witch hunt in the Labour Party. The message to Labour's national executive was clear: fight the Tories, not the Socialists. And it came from militant supporters, trade union representatives and those from constituency parties. One of the main speakers was Peter Tatchell.
We didn't elect those members of the NEC to witch hunt good socialists out of the Labour Party. We didn't elect them to use Clause 2 to drive out supporters of Clause 4 from our ranks. We elected them to campaign for socialist policies, and it's about time they reserve their venom for the Tories and cease witch hunting good socialists in the party. And the only witch hunt I want to see is a witch hunt against the Tories to get a Labour government to power which will carry out a fundamental change in our society.
One of the leading members of Michael Foot's shadow cabinet has said that the next Labour government will create a new department for economic and industrial planning. Mr Merlin Rees told a Labour candidates conference in Scarborough that the new department would sponsor investment and industry. Earlier this week, Mr Rees was appointed Labour's coordinator on industry and employment policy. The Employment Secretary, Norman Tebbit, has said his green paper on trade union reforms will be the most devastating thing ever to hit the union militants. Speaking in Carlisle, Mr Tebbit said the aim was to make unions more democratic. The green paper is expected in the next few weeks. The dispute that's prevented publication of the Daily Telegraph in London for over a week has been settled. Print workers in the Sogat 82 union went back to work this afternoon, and tomorrow's Sunday Telegraph will now be published. The men held their mass meeting earlier today, at which they approved a new management offer of increased earnings, a new sick pay scheme and other agreements. The Telegraph's management will now go ahead with plans to withdraw a folding machine. It was union opposition to this move that led to the dispute. In Northern Ireland, the funeral has taken place of a 17-year-old youth shot dead by the RUC on Wednesday. Michael Tighe was killed and another youth wounded when police opened fire on them after they'd been spotted carrying a rifle. The dead boy's family say he'd never been involved with the IRA and had just found the guns nearby. This report from Clive Ferguson.
There was nothing paramilitary about the funeral, bearing out the Tighe family's denials that their son had been in the IRA. The Guard of Honour, which led the hearse from the house, was formed from the local Gaelic football club for which Michael Tighe had played. Several hundred people walked behind the coffin for the 4 miles to the local chapel, the numbers betraying the strength of feeling about the circumstances of the 17-year-old's death. Among the mourners, Seamus Mallon, the Roman Catholic politician who's called for an inquiry into the shooting. That call was repeated during the Requiem Mass. In a statement read out in church, the local bishop, Dr. Francis Brooks, said there had to be an impartial inquiry to allay suspicions about how Michael Tighe had died and strengthen credibility in the police. But inquiry or not, he urged local people to work to remove the atmosphere of tension in the area caused by the shooting.
England's cricketers have struck back in the Brisbane Test. At one stage, it looked as if their bowlers would gain England a first innings lead, until Australia produced a second fine innings in the match by a South African-born player. Michael Blakey reports on the man who saved Australia after an early collapse.
Kepler Christoffel Wessels was still there, as he had been all day. The South African-born opener was playing his first game for Australia. In the locally published tour guide, his likes are listed as music and success. Dislikes, not surprisingly, politics.
Beautiful timing.
His 50 took him a shade over 3 hours. He was top scorer for Australia, and Australian supporters were quick to point out that England's top scorer was Alan Lamb, and he was born in Cape Province. His wife was in the crowd, willing him on to a century in his first game for his adopted country.
There it is. Shaw pulls it forward a square. Well played, couple of Wessels.
It came with 5 minutes of play remaining. He'd batted throughout the long, hot, steamy day. He'd stayed there while more experienced players had been dismissed. And for what it's worth, he's the first South African-born player to score 100 in his first Test innings. His relief and pleasure was obvious.
A heavy police presence helped to prevent serious trouble at the derby match between Barnsley and Leeds United. 400 police, twice the usual number, were on duty, and a mobile prison van with 18 cells was parked outside the Barnsley ground. Nicholas Witchell reports.
Coaches bringing Leeds supporters into Barnsley were stopped and checked by police as they came off the M1 motorway. At Barnsley railway station, fans coming off the special trains were met by heavy cordons of police, some of them on horseback. At one point, as the fans surged forward, a fence gave way, sending both supporters and police sprawling on the ground. Mounted police moved in to push the fans back. At the ground, the Leeds and Barnsley supporters were shepherded into different parts of the terraces. Outside, a large white police bus was waiting to take offenders directly to Barnsley Magistrates Court, which has been sitting in special session this afternoon to administer immediate fines. It's a step which the Leeds club has fully endorsed.
That's all for the moment. I'll be back with more news at 10 to 9.
Good evening. Well, it's going to be quite a cold, frosty night again tonight, and there will be some fog reforming again in central and eastern parts in particular. In western areas, this front's going to come in and bring a band of cloud and a few spots of rain as well. But during tomorrow, the front itself will die a death over western parts, just ending up as a few scattered showers with bright intervals developing. And central and eastern parts are going to have a dry day, but quite a foggy start. So let's have a look at tonight's weather first. And quite frosty over much of the country again, with this fog forming in central, southern and eastern parts of England and forming quite early on this evening again as well. Western areas though will generally cloud over as the night goes on, and there will be a few spots of rain coming along, but nothing very much. And in the far north, some wintry showers about again. And then for tomorrow, well, western areas, that's western parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales and the south west here, will have quite a lot of variable cloud about in the morning with some spots of rain about as well. But as the day goes on, that rain will turn more showery in nature, and there will be quite a lot of bright intervals developing. Central and eastern parts, though, quite foggy to begin with, some of that fog being reluctant to clear, but I think by mid-afternoon most of it should have gone away and there will be some bright spells and dry. Good evening.
Now with a roundup of today's sport, here's Bob Wilson.
Good evening. As you may have heard, the top 6 in the First Division all won today, so Liverpool stay 4 points clear of the pack after beating Tottenham 3-0. Kenny Dalglish scored twice, and Spurs are still unable to beat the Anfield jinx that has lasted for 70 years. After last week's record 15 sendings off, the total today was a much more modest 4 players, but they included England centre-half Alvin Martin of West Ham, who was sent off for fighting Everton's Alan Irvine. Just a quick look now at the men who got the goals for the First Division pace setters. Apart from Dalglish, John Barnes also scored twice as Watford won 4-2 at Arsenal. Gary Birtles scored twice in Nottingham Forest's 3-0 win over Manchester City. England captain Brian Robson was another 2-goal man as Manchester United beat Norwich 3-0 in front of Old Trafford's lowest league crowd of the season, just over 34,000. And Aston Villa's Gary Shaw scored twice in the 3-0 victory at Stoke. In Division 2, Gordon Davis scored his 15th goal of the season to give Fulham victory over Sheffield Wednesday. But Queen's Park Rangers still lead the way after another 1-0 win over Carlisle. The other headlines: cricket, and South African-born opening batsman Kepler Wessels scored an unbeaten century on his Test debut for Australia. He made 105 against England as Australia went 27 runs in front with 4 wickets left. Racing, and the 94 favourite Bragourn beat stablemate Captain John to complete a brilliant 1-2 for trainer Michael Dickinson in the Hennessy Cognac Gold Cup at Newbury. Rugby Union and the County Championship final in January will be between Gloucestershire and Yorkshire, who beat Surrey and Middlesex respectively in today's semi-finals. Finally, tennis, and the United States retained the Davis Cup when John McEnroe and Peter Fleming won the doubles against France in Grenoble. That gave the Americans a winning 3-0 lead. Well, now back to football and the league tables. In Division 1, as I mentioned, the top 6 clubs all won, Liverpool remaining 4 points clear of the field. The only change is that Manchester United go above West Ham by virtue of a better goal difference. Birmingham came off the bottom after beating Sunderland 2-1. Sunderland now go to last place, level on points with Norwich. But there's only 4 points separating those 7 clubs on the caption. No real change in Division 2, with Queen's Park Rangers still leading Fulham by a point. Both clubs won 1-0 at home today. Sheffield Wednesday stay third despite their defeat at Fulham and are now ahead of Wolves only on goal difference. On to the third division, and while Lincoln's match at Oxford was abandoned because of fog and Cardiff's match postponed, Huddersfield leapt up the table. They beat close rivals Bristol Rovers 3-1. Division 4, and Bury go 3 points clear at the top thanks to their 1-0 win over second place Scunthorpe. Swindon 2-1 winners at Stockport last night stay third, and Hull, who beat Chester 2-0, edge Port Vale out of 4th place on goal difference. Scotland's Premier Division and the top 3 clubs there beginning to break clear, led by Celtic, who won 3-2 today at Hibernian. Pools, and check those coupons very carefully tonight, with only 6 score draws and 4 no-score draws on the coupons. Telephone claims are requested for 22 points, and the dividend forecast is very good. Here are the numbers you're going to require. The score draws: numbers 6, 14, 19, 23, 47, and 48. The no-score draws: numbers 22, 28, 37 and 52. Now racing, and the big event today, as I said, was the Hennessy Cognac Gold Cup at Newbury, in which that brilliant young trainer, Michael Dickinson, saddled the favourite Bregawn and Captain John. The pair had drawn clear of their 9 rivals as Peter O'Sullivan takes up the story in the closing stages.
Coming to the final fence now, and it's Bregawn, the favourite, from his stable companion, Captain John. These two, the Michael Dickinson duo, Bregawn and Captain John, there's very little between them. A mistake there by Bregawn, hands the initiative now to Captain John. And racing into the closing stages, it's Captain John with Bregawn renewing his challenge. Racing into the closing stages, Bregawn is beginning to get up. Here's Glass telling as they race to the line, Bregawn is going to win it. And at the line, Bregawn wins the Hennessy. Second is Captain John, third Sea Captain.
Boxing news now, and Larry Holmes has retained his WBC Heavyweight Championship with a unanimous points decision over Randy Cobb in Houston. It was his 13th successful defence since winning the title in 1978, and only the second time he'd been taken the full 15 rounds. Karate and Britain have won a gold medal in the men's team event at the World Karate Championships in Taiwan. Italy took the silver and Japan the bronze. Well, we're almost out of time, but I must point you in the direction of Match of the Day tomorrow. 2 quite remarkable games. Luton versus Southampton from Division 1, 6 goals there. Crystal Palace against Wolves from Division 2, 7 in that one, 13 goals overall, 5 o'clock tomorrow.
Entertainment for Saturday night on BBC1. At 6:15, Noel Edmonds with the Late Late Breakfast Show and special guests Cliff Richard and Dolly Parton. At 6:55, Blankety Blank with Terry Wogan.
What are you laughing at? Oh, it's just I can see we're in for another half hour of remorseless hilarity, aren't we?
In Juliet Bravo at 7:30, The Problems of Loneliness.
We've got a constable on the way to you, Mrs. Preble. Just hang on, love, eh?
They've got me frightened out of my wits, Sergeant.
At 8:20, the first of a new series of 3 of a kind.
Mind if I play the piano?
No, you go right ahead.
Oh, great. OK, piano, 301, double the stop.
And at 9:05, Shogun, Richard Chamberlain stars in the second part of the adventure series set in Japan and based on the true story of Will Adams. At 10:35, the first of BBC One's nightly visits to the United Kingdom Professional Snooker Championship. With adventure and intrigue in A Case for Cannon at 11:45, this is the lineup of entertainment for Saturday night on BBC One.
Now it's time to fasten the seatbelts as we meet those good old country boys, the Dukes of Hazzard.